I am a recovering addict, and I'm also, most importantly, I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. So I'm a little bit a long way from home from where I was born. I was born in South Mississippi, in Laurel, Mississippi, and I was born to, our family wasn't real rich. We didn't have a whole lot of money, so growing up in school, it was kind of, really didn't fit in with everybody, you know what I'm saying? I was kind of the kid that got picked on because, I always wore clothes that wasn't the nicest and those kind of things. And as I grew up in school, man, I started realizing, like, I thought everything was good at home, right? Like I thought everything was good. Parents hid things real well, But as I got older, it was a lot harder for them to hide things because I was, I guess, more curious of what was going on behind closed doors, right? And like my parents would always go in another room. I'd smell this smell coming out of that room, and I wanted to know what they was doing back there, And it took me a while, but eventually I found out. I was, I don't know, 7th grade probably. I skipped a lot. 7th grade, I picked up marijuana for the first time. You know what I'm saying? And in my mind, if my parents are doing it, it's okay. You know what I'm saying? If they're doing it, I can do it too, right? So, and that continued on all the way through, like, the remainder of high school. But eventually I picked up drinking too because my daddy was a heavy alcoholic. All my life. I seen him come home. He'd be so drunk he'd walk in the door and fall on the floor. I watched that most of my life. And so I picked that up too. And then I started hanging with some people that I fit in with these people, because we wasn't worried about what nobody was wearing. We was all at parties and those kind of things. And that just kept going and going and going, man. And eventually I made it. Somehow or another, I made it through high school. I don't know how I did that, but I did. And I graduated, and I went to work immediately. And then I went to work with a bunch of older guys, so they was doing the same thing. They'd leave work, we'd stop by the store, they'd buy the beer, we'd smoke on the way home. So it was just like continuous. Like I was stuck in a cycle. I should have known that something was different. You know what I'm saying? Because they could drink a few and go home and wake up the next day and do it. I'd drink till there wasn't. I'd black out, and I would miss work the next day or whatever it may be. And they just kept on till eventually I went to a party one night, and somehow or another somebody offered me some crystal meth. You know what I'm saying? And that's really where I picked up that demon that rode my back for a very, very long time, man. And he took me to places I never thought I'd go. Kept me there a lot longer than I ever wanted to be there, right? And but from that first time I picked it up, that was it. Everything else was gone. Like, I didn't worry about the drinking and smoking no more. That was it. Like that's what I wanted, and I was going to get it at all costs. And I got to where, like, I wasn't employable no more. That was the first thing that went out. That was been gone, and I started hanging with some people that wasn't really doing the right things, and I just fell in line with that. And eventually, I really don't know how it happened, but I started realizing that my dad was doing it too, right? Like, but I didn't know it until I got on that substance, and I started realizing some of the things I was doing, he was doing too. And eventually, me and him started using together, and he was like my role model. You know what I'm saying? Like, all through my life, that was my role model. And it went from a father-son relationship to like a brother relationship. And it did a lot of damage in life, in the family too, because my mom wasn't. I mean, she messed around some, but it wasn't as in the same sense as what me and him were doing. And it just destroyed the whole family. I had 2 sisters, and they got off on it, and we all kind of just went our own separate ways. Kind of, it just tore the whole family apart. But that's what the enemy does. He hates families. He's there to steal, kill, and destroy everything. And he succeeded in our family for a good little while, right? And so, family desperate. I didn't know what to do. I done lost everything, a little bit that I had. I was still young, and they always say a geographical change. That might help, right? That does not, because we tried that. We moved from South Mississippi to Greenville, right? And that was my parents' grand plan to get me off of drugs. Let's go to Greenville, Mississippi. And that didn't work out too well either, because the first person I ran into in Greenville was myself. So, and then I really didn't want to be there, you know what I'm saying? Because my whole life was down there. So we moved up here. I didn't know nobody. And so I kind of bucked the whole idea of even moving. So first thing I found was what I was looking for, you know what I'm saying? And it just kept going and going and going. And eventually, man, like, that's like, there used to have like morals, like I wasn't going to steal, I wasn't going to do this, I wasn't going to, you know, all those type of things. But once you get under the grips of that drug, man, all that goes out the window. You know what I'm saying? I started hanging with people. Next thing you know, I was stealing from my family. You know, that's how it started. You know, I was stealing from the people I loved the most. And then it got to where anybody, it wasn't just family. It was anything I could get my hands on to sell, to get my fix. That's all I was worried about doing. And I remember the first time I went to jail was in Greenville. And, you know, I called my dad immediately. He came running and got me out real quick. And that kind of scared me for a minute. You know, that was my first time. I didn't know Greenville, Washington County Jail is nothing nice either. You know, it's really not. But so that kind of scared me for a little bit. And I slowed my roll for a minute. And then I got right back into it. It didn't take me long. And was back in jail. And then I called my daddy, and he said, hold up, no, man, we did that one time. But eventually he came and got me. And then the next time I went to jail, he wouldn't come get me. I called my grandma. Then she would come and got me, you know. So I had a huge family that was enabling me kind of in a way, but it was just out of love. They didn't know. You know, they were just doing it out of love for me. And I kept digging myself deeper and deeper and deeper. And then I started seeing everybody around me, man, they was doing IV, you know what I'm saying? They was using a needle. And I said, well, I ain't never going to do that. You know what I'm saying? No, I might do some bad things, but I ain't going to do that. And well, you know, one day or another I did it. And I was around them people long enough. You know, we got a saying in recovery, you go to the barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut. And eventually I got the haircut, man. I was right there with them, you know what I'm saying? And that's when everything changed, like everything. Like I didn't look at life the same way. Like I didn't care about myself, much less anybody else, you know. And my family, I didn't care about nothing other than that. That's all I was worried about. And I remember going to jail one time, and my grandma, I got out. This is the longest I ever stayed in there. I did like 6 months, got right out, did 6 more months. So I was in there a total of a year minus 2 weeks. But she came and got me that last time, and she said, I ain't doing it again. And I made it 2 weeks, but at this time I'd moved to where my parents was, another geographical change, which it worked for a little while, like 2 weeks, right? And I went to work with my dad, and I got in the truck, and he was doing it. And next thing I know, I was right back off into it. So I really felt some type of way, man, because you know that my father was supposed to be the person that was there to guide me in the right direction, right? Like, and I didn't have that. And but anyway, that ain't. I'm gonna get off. I'm trying to harp on that too bad. And so I lost it. So I went right back out, you know what I'm saying? I was running and gunning again. My family was living in Bolivar County. I moved back in with my grandma because this is where everybody I knew was at. This is where I knew where to get my drugs and all that, Greenville. So I went there, and they knew I was on something. They didn't know the way I was doing it or how I was doing it or nothing like that. And I went. My grandma was always real nice. She was trying to wash my clothes for me, and I had a bad habit of leaving paraphernalia in my pants. Right? She called me in there one day. My grandma was real Christian woman. Didn't say no bad words, no nothing. You know, and it's first and only time I ever heard my grandmother say a bad word was that day when she found that in that washing machine, right? And she told me not to come back to her house. That was, you know, and that hit me hard because I was like, man, this woman is the one that I'm her only grandchild, right? Like, told me not to come back. So I didn't really know what to do, but all I could do was look. I couldn't look at her in her eyes, so I just turned around and walked off. And then when I did decide to come back, I hit her with that old sob story. I want to go to treatment. You know what I'm saying? I need help, Granny. And I guess she got me some help faster than what I really wanted it. Like, you know, the next morning she had me a bed in rehab, and I ran from that, and but so the addiction just carried on and carried on, right? Then I eventually got caught up in a couple felony charges. I went to jail a whole bunch for misdemeanors, and I kept getting out because, you know, like when you go to jail, man, I really didn't know God before any of this recovery deal. I knew what my grandmother had told me, you know, while I was in the house, but I really didn't know God like I do now. And so when I go to jail, I'd pray because, you know, I'd do that foxhole prayer and pray to God, and he was merciful and let me out. You know what I'm saying? But you rack up a couple felonies in the state of Mississippi, they don't believe in letting you out too quick. So I remember I had 3 outstanding indictments. I went to jail for had 2 counts of controlled substance contrabands and a felony business burglary. And I got arrested. What day was that? July the 9th, 2020. And that officer told me, he said, "We fixing to get you some help whether you want it or not." And somehow or another, my daddy got me out of jail. And then I called him. He worked something out with somebody, and he bonded me out. And you know, that should be your, you know, there's your sign that you're messing up. But it wasn't. Like, it had me in a grip that I just could not shake. You know, and went right back to it. I weighed about 129 pounds. Didn't have nowhere to live, running the streets, riding a bicycle everywhere I went. I was stealing from everybody I knew. Didn't nobody want to see me coming around. You know what I'm saying? If I showed up, everybody was locking the door. You know what I'm saying? Don't let him come over at all. And I just got to the point, man, where I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know which way to go, which way to turn. And by this point, my grandmother had already passed away, and so I didn't have her house to go to at all. The only thing that kept playing through my mind was I'd always show up at her house at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. We'd sit down and she'd read out of the Bible to me and those kind of things. I guess she was planting them seeds that nobody else was in my life. And the only thing I remember getting out of jail one time, and I said, "Granny, I don't know what's wrong with me. I just can't get right." She told me, "You will not get right until you have God in your life, son." And at that point that I was broken, I didn't know where else to go. I got down on my knees for the first time in my life, and it wasn't a foxhole prayer. It was a sincere cry out for help. And it wasn't, he answered it. It wasn't immediate. You know what I'm saying? Like, I still messed up for a little while, and then I got arrested on September the 24th of 2020. And that is my clean date today. But, you know, I'm thankful that he doesn't give us what we want, you know what I'm saying, and he gives us what he knows we need. Because in my mind, what I wanted was some probation, and that was going to be it. But he knew that wasn't enough for a person like me. It was going to take some more accountability in my life than just that. And I was looking at 40 years in the state penitentiary for them 3 felonies, and they give me drug court. And yeah, it was but God. You know what I'm saying? That's the only person that could have did that was God. So, and I was serious. I went to jail, and you know, there's drugs in there. I didn't touch none of it, man. I was serious. I was to the point that I couldn't take no more. Like, it took everything from me, my family, everything. And stayed in there 2 months, and this is like my first sign that I knew it was God, right? Like, the rehab my grandmother was trying to send me to was the Haven House in Oxford. And in drug court, they send you all across the state to any rehab they can get you in. And I remember them picking me up, and I said, "Which rehab am I going to?" And they said, "The Haven House." And it just stuck with me that day. You know, like, I know God's in this. And I went there and did my little 90-day stay. Really didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't have nobody to call on whenever I'd come home, you know what I'm saying, because I'd done burned every bridge I ever went across. And I called an old buddy of mine really family member that I used to work for, and his wife answered. And I said, "Hey, Farrah, it's Cody." And she said, "Oh, what do you want?" You know what I'm saying? Like, and I had to break it down. Like, hey, I'm really trying to get my life together and this and that. I just need some help when I come home. I need a job. I'm gonna try to get on my feet and do the right things now. And they did that. And instead of going home to my family where my mom was, my dad, because I knew that was not a good idea going around where my dad was. So I made a decision to go to a sober living home. And that's really, I went to a program, another 12-step program first, and it was Narcotics Anonymous. And that's really where I learned how to pray, was in there, you know what I'm saying? Because, like, I really just knew how to pray for things I wanted instead of, and that's really not right. We're not supposed to do that. And I got in there and I just learned how to talk to God, man, between me and him. It wasn't just talk to him like I'm sitting here talking to you, Cliff, And it was through that program that got me around other people that was going to church and those kind of things. And I stayed in there for a year. I didn't mess up. I was doing good in drug court. And I met a guy named Chris Bush after a year, right? And that's really when I met a whole group of believers, right? It wasn't just a few people. It was an army that I'd met, right? And I started helping him. I guess what would be the word? Manage? Would that be the word? Yeah. Huh? Yeah. Manage a transitional home and really start pouring back into other addicts. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was where I had been and coming from where I went from, and I really got to pour back into other addicts, man. You know what I'm saying? And that really, it wasn't all about me no more. You know what I'm saying? It was about helping the next person get to where I am or further than where I'm at, and lead them to God, who is the one who saved me, right? Because I didn't do this. It was nothing I did, because everything I tried to do, it backfired on me. It was not possible by yourself. It's not possible. And then I remember stayed at his first transitional home for a while, helping do that. And then we had this plan, or he had this plan, right? And get this big building in downtown Greenville. Real big building in the old Salvation Army, which now is a sacred space. And we're gonna help run a homeless shelter and a bigger transitional home, a lot bigger. And I remember when it wasn't nothing but a thought and a prayer, you know what I'm saying? Like, and then everybody was praying over it, and that prayer turned into a reality. You're right, like, and it went from a building that we had to work on every day after work, putting the beds together and just good camaraderie with other Christians, right? And we all had a vision, and we got in there and we went to working, and next thing you know, man, there's 20 people living there. You know what I'm saying? In a transitional house, and everybody's leading them to God and Jesus Christ, right? And that helped me more in my recovery than any 12-step meeting I ever went to. Just pouring into other people, man, and leading them to Jesus Christ. You know what I'm saying? That poured in, that helped me in my recovery more than anything else. And since I moved out of there, hold on, I got to back up. I was riding that pink cloud for a while, right? And my mom had got sick, okay? And she was battling cancer for 2 years, and then I was still living in a transitional house, still trying to help there, balance going to help my mama as much as I could, and because I struggled for a long time with not being a good son to my mom, right? Like, I struggled with that horribly. And then by the time that I did get my life together, she gets sick. And I really, really struggled with that. And but I was there for my mama at the end. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was there. And that's by the grace of God I was there, because I could have been in prison, but he spared me from that, and let me be there for my mama when she needed me the most, because she didn't have nobody else. And she passed away on April the 21st. And, you know, I prayed for a long time for healing, right? Like, just healing of my mom. And somewhere in my mind, I wanted to believe that was going to be worldly healing, right? Like, you know, I wanted to believe that, but it was stage 4 cancer. It was terminal. And that week in the hospital, I was just been praying and my mama stayed in there a week, unresponsive. I was there the whole time, except for the day that I went home and she passed away that next morning. And I went home that Saturday night and I prayed to God. And I just asked him. I said, the life she's living it's not a life. You know what I'm saying? If it's her time, go ahead and call her home, please. You know. And I woke up the next morning with that phone call. And you know, at first I was real upset. And but he blessed me with some understanding that I'd never had before. You know, that he did heal my mama that day. Like he did heal her, but it's not worldly healing. She's up there with him and no longer hurting, no more suffering than cancer, or none of that. But since then, that happened in April. Today is October. Since then, God has just really blessed me. I've got married since then. I got married on September the 12th to an amazing wife. Got my own place. I'm still working there. Got a really, really good job. And we just added a little one to the family. Yeah, but and the reason I picked that song, all because of mercy at the beginning, was the only reason I can sit here and tell you today the bad things that happened in my life and everything is because of His grace and mercy. You know, that's the only reason I can stand here today and be unashamed of the things that I've done in the past, because I know that He sent His Son for us. You know, He sent His Son to die for us, for our sin, and we're forgiven for that as long as we accept Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior. And that's the only reason I'm able to stand here today and be unashamed of the things I've done, because I know I'm forgiven. And that's all I got. Thank y'all for coming.
Y'all give him another hand clap.